here on the JoyNews channel, welcoming you to The Pulse. We are indeed coming to you live from our studios here in Accra. We are on your digital terrestrial TV because we are free to air. You can catch us on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 144. This is JoyNews, independent, fearless and credible. This afternoon on The Pulse, food shortage imminent in Ghana. That's according to the Ghana Peasant Association, as they attribute the situation to government subsidy arrears and the lack of sustainable policy measures. Well, stay with us as we explore the concerns shortly here on The Pulse. And the main opposition, National Democratic Congress, tables 13 proposals to reverse what the party describes as an economic challenge and crisis in Ghana.
There's desperation to tax Ghanaians to get this nation out of the hellhole it has dumped us will not succeed because government's own budget proposals show that the E-levy will not make any significant contribution in resolving our problems, but will exact an adverse toll on the people of Ghana.
Well, so this afternoon on The Pulse, we're asking what are the demands of the NDC. We'll also hear from Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bamia, who's broken his silence, saying government is taking immediate steps to address the economic challenge facing the country.
Our government has not reneged on its development commitments to the people of Ghana in the area of education, healthcare, and infrastructure development, amongst others.
Still to come on The Pulse, the Muslim community in Ghana urges the government to fulfill its promise of transforming Zongo and inner city communities across the country.
We are also impressed with the promise made with the Chief Imam. Your Excellency, Chief Imam says he looks forward for the time when we shall do the first shortcutting of the government's intended model Islamic schools in the Zongos spread across the country.
Well, so we're also keeping our eyes on the Eid celebration. It's underway after a period of fasting in the holy month of Ramadan. Stay with us here on The Pulse. We'll bring you all of those updates. My name is Sogah. The Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities Dignilu, affordable safe sanitation. This afternoon, we're also streaming on all of our social media handles. You can tweet at us with the hashtag The Pulse, and also our handles is at JoyNews on TV. My personal handle is at Sogah. Thanks for choosing us. Stay for details. Well, so this afternoon, former President John Dramani Mahama has actually tabled 13 proposals which the opposition National Democratic Congress believes will transform Ghana's economy. Now, the NDC claims that the country is currently at a crossroads, requiring drastic measures to fix this crisis. So what exactly are the proposals from the NDC? You have that on your screens right now, indicating the concerns of the National Democratic Congress and what the means by which they feel we can address all of these challenges. So you have the first point there, indicating clearly that those who are directly responsible for the economic crisis must bear responsibility. And he goes on, and I'm talking about the former President John Dramani Mahama, going on to say that it is inconceivable that the Minister for Finance remains at post, having presided over the worst economic meltdown in Ghana's history. Now, he then goes ahead to talk about a second point, point 2, talking about the fact that it goes without saying that the economic management team has failed and must be reconstituted immediately. So part of the solution is that the NDC is asking that we reconstitute the economic management team, which includes, obviously, the Vice President of the Republic. We'll be hearing from the Vice President shortly, but there's a need to get an understanding, some more of what the demands the NDC is making. So point 1, they were calling for the resignation of the Finance Minister. They're making a point here on the second page, indicating that the economic management team needs to be reformed. Then you also need to take a look at the third point they're making here, and which is a very critical point. The President, as they are talking about, must, as a matter of urgency, reshuffle his cabinet. So that's point 3. First of all, try as much as possible to change and bring in a new Finance Minister. Next point is for a change in the economic management team. It's part of the demands they're making. The third point they're making here also, which some experts believe is far-fetched, and yet the NDC believes is part of the solution, has got to do with the cabinet of the president. That's his discretion, but the NDC believes that there's a need for government, or the president by extension, to make some changes. And they're making that case because the NDC believes that after 5 years, more than 5 years of an administration without a major cabinet reshuffle, it has actually calcified the management of the ministries, departments, and agencies, and which you heard the former president talk about yesterday on the JoyNews channel, that is making some persons feel untouchable. And that is affecting governance in the opinion of the National Democratic Congress. But that's just point 3. They're equally making a case that the seriousness of the economic meltdown must compel government to unveil a clear and a workable course of action emanating from broad-based thinking. And then they go on to say that there must be consultations as well, rather than the current state of denial and wrong attribution. So they feel that government has not diagnosed the problems of the economy properly here at point 4, which is part of the total point of 13 key issues that the NDC is raising about Ghana being at the crossroads. But the point 5 is also something that we need to take a look at. John Dramani Mahama is indicating that there must be a clear and a measurable reduction in government expenditure. Well, some say that has been addressed, but we're not too clear in how government will do that going forward. We've had some measures in terms of dealing with the government cuts by some 30%. We know that there'll be a reduction in the payment for some government appointees, but the NDC still wants more. And that's what John Mahama has been indicating here, talking about a need for a significant cut in the expenditure of government. Then he goes ahead to say that even though this is not an easy course of action, it is necessary one nonetheless. And he goes to talk about the fact that there must be zero financing, which happened somewhere way back in 2016 from the central bank. So this is also part of the demands that the NDC is making. We'll be hearing more from the NDC on this matter, but we also need to talk about point 6 very briefly. They go on to say that related to this, government must drastically cut and trim down the size, rationalize and bring to reasonable levels the pay packages of state-owned enterprises and all of that, the appointees and those working for this current government. Has that been addressed? Some would say yes, because obviously government has announced clearly the reduction in the salaries of some workers within government and some appointees, political appointees as well. So what else is the NDC demanding in that regard? We would explore all of that shortly. But point 7 is also very crucial. They talk about government limiting borrowing significantly. And this was one of the heated debates that the NDC engaged in during the 2020 elections as well with the governing New Patriotic Party, because this was a party that said they are transforming and moving away from relying heavily on debt and moving into a production-based economy. We haven't seen that happen exponentially, because the experts are still questioning why government is going back to rely on aid. And in fact, as we speak, that has been the debate in the recent times. So the NDC believes that one of the ways of dealing with that is to limit borrowing significantly. They believe that we need to do that as a matter of urgency, and all concessionary borrowings, we need to avoid that, which would ultimately benefit how we manage our debt profile as a nation. We have crossed that threshold of being debt distressed. By all standards, you shouldn't cross 70% to your GDP, but we've crossed that as well. So that is where we are in terms of our economic situation. But then we'll have to come to point 8, which the NDC talks about. Point 8 is here, and it talks about the fact that while implementing these measures, government must adequately signal to the international financial providers a clear effort at meeting future obligations. So that has got to do with the external markets, our ratings, our credibility. They believe that government must paint a true picture to the international community and our donor community as well, so they know clearly what our commitments are. But point 9 is also here. Point 10, we have to skip 9 and talk about 10, because in addition, the NDC is making a case that government must clarify reports which are rife in the investor community, which is related to the point that we're raising earlier about how government is not painting a true picture of the Ghanaian economy. It's part of the arguments that the NDC is also making. So the last 3, quickly, before we get on to the lines and hear from the NDC on this, The NDC is equally making a point that it is obvious that the assumptions underlying the projections in the 2022 budget, especially regarding the revenue, are over-ambitious and unlikely to be achieved. So government must set realizable targets. They must set targets that they will be able to achieve easily. That's part of the argument that the NDC is making. And finally, they talk about the fact that it's time to change the structure of our economy. And then the very, very last one, which we have on the proposal here, is the fact that we must leverage on our comparative advantage in agriculture. That's a key point that John Dramani Mahama is making. The fact that we need to invest much more into the agricultural sector and then realize the full benefits that we have. But how does the NDC want this very measures implemented by this government? We'll explore that shortly. But there is also an issue which I call the very last point about the NDC's address last night, which has got to do with the controversial subject of the electronic transaction levy. John Mahama says if the NDC wins power in 2024, they will repeal that controversial revenue measure.
Government's desperation to tax Ghanaians to get this nation out of the hellhole it has dumped us will not succeed because government's own budget proposals show that the E-levy will not make any significant contribution in resolving our problems, but will exert an adverse toll on the people of Ghana. Let's say, for example, a worker gets paid in his electronic wallet. His pay as you earn tax has been deducted already. For every transfer or purchase above 100 cedis he makes on his e-wallet, he has to pay an additional 1.5% multiple times anytime he uses his mobile money payment. It will now be tempting for such a person to draw cash from his e-wallet and make those payments for his groceries, his fuel, entertainment, utility bills, all with cash, because then he will avoid paying 1.5% on every payment he makes. The collection of the E-levy began yesterday. And like a slap in the face, it began on May Day, when we are supposed to be celebrating workers. We are celebrating a new tax imposed on them. And already there's a litany of complaints about the implementation. I've heard complaints of transfers of under 100 cedis being subject to tax contrary to the law. And I've heard others say that they sent 1,000 cedis and paid no additional tax. Clearly, the Ghana Revenue Authority and those responsible for this tax were not ready for its implementation. Government's desperation to tax Ghanaians to get this nation out of the hellhole it has dumped us will not succeed because government's own budget proposals show that the E-levy will not make any significant contribution in resolving our problems, but will exert an adverse toll on the people of Ghana. We in the NDC do not oppose taxation as a principle. We will not be pretentious and couch fanciful slogans to condemn the principle of taxation like the MPP did in the past. We are, however, implacably opposed to distortionary and burdensome taxes like the E-levy that only force Ghanaians to endure more suffering. A new National Democratic Congress government, God willing, and with the votes of the sovereign people of Ghana in 2025, will repeal the E-levy Act.
Well, so that's John Mahama's position, obviously speaking on behalf of the NDC, but there's a response, not necessarily to what the demands of the NDC are, but from the Vice President, indicating that government will not renege in its effort to get the economy back on track. He made a speech at the Black Star Square where he joined hundreds of Muslims to welcome the new month of Shawwal following a successful period of fasting. Here are excerpts of the Vice President's speech.
Has not reneged on its development commitments to the people of Ghana in the areas of education, healthcare, and infrastructure development, amongst others. In education, we have continuously strengthened our flagship education policy, a free senior high school, and we have not reneged on other pro-poor interventions we introduced, such as feeding our children at a basic level and also paying for their BC and WACC examination fees. We have introduced free TVET also to enhance technical education. In health, government continues to show strong commitment towards the National Health Insurance Scheme, and we have recruited thousands of health workers since the pandemic, contrary to the disturbing situation in the past, where health workers were left for almost 3 years without being employed. Again, in health, our hospitals for all districts, also known as Agenda 111 initiative, is also ongoing. In the youth development and employment, the government has ensured that no public sector job was lost or salary cuts implemented during the COVID-19 pandemic, unlike many other countries where public sector workers were laid off or their salaries reduced. Also, we have invested massively in entrepreneurial development and support to the youth in a bid to help create sustainable opportunities for our teeming youth.
Well, there's a lot more bothering on the economy because there's a warning coming through from the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. They are warning of an imminent food shortage across the country. The group attributes the situation to the unavailability of subsidized fertilizers to farmers due to the outstanding debts owed suppliers by government. Government has an outstanding debt of some 346 million cedis to settle, as a situation which is reportedly crippling the sector. So how do we address this, and what's the best option for government to adopt in the face of this damning reports? Joining us now is Dr. Charles Nyaba. He's the Head of Programs and Advocacy at the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana. Thank you so much, sir, for your time. So how soon are we to experience the effects of what it is that your association is talking about?
Okay, good evening. Let me correct this. I'm the Executive Director of the Peasant Farmers Association of Ghana, not the Head of Programs and Advocacy. Our earlier predictions that food prices will continue to rise was based on several factors, which is related to cost of production, climate-related issues, global development. That makes it difficult for us to actually access certain inputs that will allow us to continue to produce at a lower cost. All those factors haven't changed as we stand. So we are not actually seeing any changes from now until 2023. So we earlier on made some proposals, and those proposals has to be how government can come in to intervene to ensure that cost of production is reduced. Because if cost of production is reduced, you're able to also sell it at a price for ordinary Ghanaian to be able to purchase. But those proposals, we are yet to actually get positive response from government. One has to do with government failure to pay what they asked fertilizer importers to supply in 2020 and 2021. As we stand, most of the fertilizer companies that we spoke to are not sure whether they will do fertilizer under the subsidy or not. And if that is not done, it's going to actually be very difficult. The cost has more than quadruple, more than 5 times the cost of 2021 cost of production. So those are the things that we are looking at. And then we just hope that from now until June, we are going to get some intervention from government, especially Ministry of Finance, because the problem has to do with the failure of Ministry of Finance to release money for payments of these importers. And if that is not done, the situation in 2023 will even be worse than we are experiencing now.
Is the situation only bordering on the issue of the subsidy arrears? Are there other factors of production that government is not necessarily paying attention to?
Yeah, there are several factors. You see, if you are talking about production, there are several factors that come together to ensure that we are able to produce. One has to do with the cost of land preparation, cost of plowing, cost of agrochemicals, that's weedicides, herbicides, pesticides, and what have you. Cost of fertilizer is just one of the factors. Cost of post-harvest management. So if you look at all these factors, apart from the land, which is there for us to go and produce, and then the hope for us to get rains from God, all the other factors of production has increased. Agrochemicals, for instance, in 2021, we're buying the 1 liter of glyphosate for 25 Ghana cedis. Today it's going for 60 Ghana cedis. Tractor service was around 120 to 150 Ghana cedis. As we speak, it's going for 250 to 300 Ghana cedis. If you take a post-harvest management, we are yet to know the cost, but it will definitely increase. Now, that's one area. Apart from that, even transporting the commodity from where we produce the farm gate to the nearest market, to the urban area, to the cities, cost has also more than 3 times increased. So all these factors we put together, we will set those factors to the consumer. We are doing it, it's not because we are trying to make abnormal profit, but we are just trying to remain in business. Because if your cost of production in 2020 was around 1,700 Ghana cedis, and today the same acre for 1 acre of maize, the same cost of 1 acre of maize is going for 3,700 Ghana cedis, you can imagine. Every businessman will not like to actually produce and sell at the same cost. We also have to save the cost to the consumer so that we can remain in business.
So for now, what's the option for government?
The immediate option for government is to actually release money for payment of fertilizer importers. That's one.
Besides, and I'm sorry for cutting through. I'm sorry for cutting through. The fear is government is already dealing with some issues, bordering on raising revenue. There are expenditure challenges for government at this moment, and some economic experts predict that government may not be able to spend more on subsidies. So if that's the case, can't we consider something else to save the situation?
Yeah, so we have actually considered several factors, but we think that government needs to play its part. We think that in the worst case scenario, we don't expect to see our agriculture sector budget being cut down. But as it stands, the information I got from the Ministry of Finance, the budget has slashed drastically. Apart from the percentage of subsidy being reduced, even the quantity that is subsidized has also drastically reduced. So if you look at actually the agriculture sector, I think we suffered more compared to all the other sectors. Even with the 20% cut, if you look at the percentage cut for that of fertilizer, it's more than 50%, and that we think that is unfair. If you look at all other countries that depend on the agriculture sector to drive the economy, in crisis like this, they rather move money from other sectors to support farmers. But in our case, we are rather drawing money from our agriculture sector to support other sectors, which we think is not an option to consider. On our own, we have considered several factors, including the option of using the organic fertilizer and organic manure. But how much or what quantity of organic manure can we gather? The liquid organic fertilizer we are considering as an option. The quantities in the market currently is inadequate to reach all of us. And we need to actually combine the organic liquid fertilizer with the granular chemical fertilizer to be able to get the results that we are looking for. So we have considered several factors, including even shifting from commodities that consume too much fertilizer to those that take less fertilizer, like the leguminous, the tube-based, that takes less fertilizer. We are considering all those factors. Look, but there are certain commodities that we can't do without. If you take maize, for instance, if you cut down maize production, it will affect poultry. If you cut down soya production, it will affect poultry. So, and these are crops that actually consume greater quantities of the fertilizer. So we just think that government need to do something if you want to actually stabilize the economy.
And how soon are these urgent measures needed?
Yeah, it's needed now because the southern sector, last week I was in the Volta region, and I realized that most of them have already planted. The middle belt, like the Chima, Nkranza, Ejra area, Atebu, they've all planted, and very soon they'll need a fertilizer. Northern part of the country, they are still waiting for the rains. Any moment from now to the end of this month, we'll be planting. And in the early first to second week of June, we actually need to apply the fertilizer. So I think the time is now. And what I think the Ministry of Finance should do is not just to close their eyes without showing indication when we'll be making these payments. They should at least invite these companies, promise them and tell them that, look, this is the time frame, this is the payment plan that we have for you. But before we even do that, go ahead and start distributing. But all those things are not done. And the Ministry of Finance are not actually showing any interest. They are not seeing this as urgent. And that is our worry. We have occasion of talking to the Ministry of Food and Agriculture, and then we actually try to understand the angle they are coming from. We saw that they are anxious to ensure that we get the fertilizer, but according to them, they are powerless. So we think that we all need to add our voice to ensure that the Ministry of Finance do the right.
Obviously, as the ministry approaches the matter with urgency, there's also the question about the Planting for Food and Jobs program. What you are warning us of goes contrary to what it is that government was projecting with this policy. How come it's not yielding a significant result which would impact on our food security?
Okay, so one thing I've observed, apart from the weaknesses that we have been talking about, you have a global trends. Globally, cost of food item has increased, and the food that we are purchasing in the market is not only what we produce here. If we take rice, for instance, there's a global increase in rice prices. The quantity of rice that is produced and consumed in Ghana is less than 50%. The rest, we get it from imports. If we take maize and soya, we also have our neighbors who compete with us. So it means that if you have quantity for our own domestic consumption, and then we have others who are competing to also buy, the farmers have the option to also sell for the highest bidder. So all these factors come to play. Now, if we talk of planting for food and jobs, to yield the results we are looking for, have to be backed by money. So if you are a government that is coming out with a policy and you don't back it with finances, you won't get the results you are looking for. So that alone is a threat to sustainability of planting for food and jobs. And for us to be able to sustain planting for food and jobs per the results that we have seen over the years, we need to ensure that we commit more resources and ensure that we also close the implementation gaps that we've seen in the past. And if that is done, with time, we, the farmers, are already preparing. We know there's no way. With time, government will have to exit in some of the input subsidies. But we think this is not the time. For now, looking at the global challenges that we have with some of these inputs and mechanization, government should rather turn its focus on devoting more resources to support the sector.
Dr. Charles Nyaba, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us here on the Pulse. Obviously, we'll be continuing with this conversation some more, because there's a warning coming through from energy experts as well on our energy security. All that and more is coming up right here on the Pulse. Please stay. We'll return after this short break. And you're welcome back to the Pulse. Now, a lot of reactions is greeting the alarm or the alert coming through from the Ghana Peasant Farmers Association, warning of an imminent food shortage here in the country. Joining us now is Dr. Kojo Kusi, Senior Lecturer at the School of Agric at the University of Cape Coast. Also, Isa Udrago is founder of Be Bovid, an agro-social enterprise. Thank you, gentlemen, for joining us. So here we are. The Ghana Peasant Farmers Association is indicating clearly that we need to take drastic measures to deal with this. Let me start off from you, Dr. Kusi. What would be that first step towards addressing this problem? Dr. Kusi.
Okay, all right. Good afternoon, and let me greet you.
Yes.
Good afternoon, and let me take the opportunity to greet Cherish. Food insecurity is really true that it is possible that Ghana, we can enter into that crisis. But once we've been alerted by the association that
Dr. Kusi,
this thing can happen. Then security doesn't come from
Dr. Kusi, we're losing you intermittently.
Hello?
If you could just make the point you were making earlier.
Okay, so what I'm saying, please can you hear me now?
But your line keeps breaking. It appears that there's still a challenge there. But Isa Drago, if you're with us, your association has been monitoring this development as well. What figures do you have, or perhaps what's the situation looking like in terms of our food security? Isa Drago, if you can hear me, kindly unmute so we can get the point you're making. Isa Drago, if you can hear me, I'm asking you to unmute so we can hear the point you're making. Dr. Kusi, let's see if the lines to Dr. Kusi is better now. Dr. Kusi, if you can hear me, you're making the point about how we could avert this.
Yeah, sorry for that breakup. What I'm saying is that food insecurity is not just one cause. There are so many things that come to play to bring about food insecurity. So some have been mentioned though, but there are still others that we can look at. We have a climate change issue, which is not Ghana's problem, but it's a global issue. And then food wastage. And then the agronomic practices itself that we practice in Ghana. All these things bring about food insecurity. And so if we don't try to solve this issue holistically by taking them and seeing that which ones are immediate, which ones are later, we might not be able to do that. For example, in Ghana, we produce maize, and the yield of maize we do in Ghana is about 1.8 tons per hectare to 2 tons per hectare. That is far less than the normal one that they say that the estimated yield can be around 6. So what is causing the actual reduction in yield of maize in Ghana? So we need to look at the yield gap. If we try to bridge up the gap, then definitely we will be able to go there. It is not only fertilizer. For example, when farmers are cultivating their maize, they usually use a planting distance of about 80 times 40, which we see other countries not doing that. China is doing 65 by 15. So when we put all these things together, you realize that we can do a lot, but in terms of agronomic practices, these things must be checked. In terms of climate change, which is not Ghana's problem but a global one, we need to educate farmers, educate the populace about how they can curb or they can reduce the global warming so that everybody is waiting for the rains. It has come somehow in April. We don't know whether it's going to continue from this time to about July. If it doesn't come, we are in trouble because Ghana, about 80% of our farmers solely depend on rain. So if it doesn't come, then we are in trouble. So another thing we can do is to try to do rainwater harvesting, create some dams in some farms, and then all that. Because if farmers are not getting water to irrigate these crops, it is going to be a critical issue. So that's about the agronomic practices and climate change. One other aspect that is going on is that in Ghana, our food preferences are changing. For example, those days we were eating cocoyam, we were eating taro and other cassava and all that. Now our food preferences are changing. So when people are not consuming cocoyam again, farmers wouldn't cultivate more cocoyam for us. Here is a case where we are depending so much on wheat for bread production. We can diversify so that if other food products, like some percentage of cassava, like millet and other ones can be used for bread, then we can try to diversify a bit so that when other ones are not for example, the war in Ukraine and then Russia has caused us so much because the importation of wheat is not coming again, or the export of wheat from that place is not there. So the price of bread is going to increase. But if we have diversified earlier that we can add certain food substances in our food, definitely we can rely on what we can produce here in Ghana than to rely on what we are going to import. Rice production is on the increase now, but prices are higher because of the fertilizer they use and all that. Now, fertilizer that was sold at 170 Ghana cedi is now about 300 and over. So these things are the factors that we must put in place so that whatever they are envisaging that there's going to be food shortages, we can at least find a way out. At the immediate term, what we can do is to train people to reduce food wastage. When you go to the market and people are selling vegetables and all that, you realize that most of the marketers throw away most of these vegetables. So if we are trained to reduce food wastages, well, I don't think what we are producing in Ghana is that low. It is able to feed us, but the wastage is also taking much of these produce we have in Ghana.
Dr. Kujokuzi, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us here on The Pulse. Now, is Ghana heading for a fuel crisis? I'm sure you heard Chairperson of the General Transport of Petroleum and Chemical Workers Union, Bernard Owusu, here on The Pulse yesterday, indicate that there's a crisis which is looming. What will it take to avert this crisis? We'll hear from a policy analyst shortly on this matter. Well, he's joining us now. Peter Tekpe is a policy analyst. He understands what's happening on the markets. Peter Tekpe, here's the case. First of all, help us understand this. Do we know where we are headed clearly? Does the concern that we have just 6 weeks of strategic reserves, what do you know about that, and what's the implication really for our situation? Peter Tekwe, can you hear me? Well, it appears we're having some challenges reaching Peter Tekwe. This is The Pulse. We'll return shortly. Please stay. And welcome back to The Pulse now. Earlier we were talking about the imminent crisis in the energy sector with regard to fuel prices, and also the warning coming through from the tanker operators and some other players in the industry that we're likely to experience some fuel shortage. Well, joining us now is Peter Tekwe. He's an energy policy analyst. Peter, what do we know about the situation across the country?
Thank you very much. I think the situation is mainly on AGO, which is mainly known as diesel. That is where we are most hit. And it is basically as a result of this same Russia-Ukraine war, which nobody expected that it will have prolonged to this level. And people are beginning to divert products to market where they are more comfortable of. And that is what is, one of the main reason for this shortage. But we are expecting that the traders in the industry are making every effort to get product into the market soon. But the fact is that there's a challenge for supply.
So is it the case that we're having a challenge?
Yes, so the fact is that, yes, we're having a challenge with regards to supply, especially on AGO. And so you realize that in few instances, in a few stations, you go and they tell you that they have shortages. But we are hoping that within a short time, it will be resolved. It will be resolved because the expectation is that there are a few imports that are on the high sea that are coming. Just that this is going to continue for a while, so far as the Russia-Ukraine war continues, because globally supply chain has been impacted. And that is the situation we find ourselves now. So the reality is that, yes, there's a challenge at hand.
Is this largely influenced by the... Yeah, but is this largely influenced by the external factors?
Sure, this is largely influenced by external factors. This is not as a result of, any internal factors. It's about your capacity to bring and also the comfort of the people selling. It's a market where you go and then negotiate and then you buy. Now, the importers or the traders, they have their own market that they deal with as well. And of course, when there is a difficulty in supply, priority is then placed on where the most need is. And the most need together with cost as well. So where the trader thinks that he's going to get maximum price, that is where he goes. And when it happens like this, the African market will not be a preference or will not be a key, priority. And that is the situation we are facing now. So those on the sea who are making effort to sell, they are looking at areas that are most needed in Europe, in America, and other countries. And that is the not as a result of.
And we're crude exporters of crude oil as well. But is this the time to review such a policy, to look more inward and revise the energy policies that we have?
Well, if you look at what is happening globally, because of these shortages that are coming, because of this constraint, most countries that are having certain key commodities in certain volumes are restricting the level of export. What it means is that instead of allowing the product to leave their country, they are deciding to take measures that will limit the volume that leave their various countries. And so those are the possibilities that are available for Ghana as well. That since we are happy to be part of the countries that produces oil, then the situation now that is becoming difficult for us to get supply for some of these products, then we also look at how we can also curtail the export of the oil. Because globally, that's what is happening. Food shortages everywhere. And so everybody is looking at securing his or her economy. And that is what we should also be gearing towards. That. What should we also do? Should we also limit the export of our petroleum product? Yes, that is what we should be thinking of now. That if there's going to be constraint, then that's what we should do. But unfortunately for us, we are only producing the raw crude. We are only extracting the raw crude. We don't refine. So even if you should even keep it, you are not refining. The refinery is down. And so we are faced with a major challenge, such that we don't have the refined product for us to even sell onto the market. So Ghana is in a very tight corner, because even if you restrict export, your refinery is not working, and so you'll be challenged. You still have to send it out. What it means is that then when you send it out, you allow somebody to refine for you, then you bring back the refined product, so that one you are short of the supply. Unfortunately, the quantity we are producing will not be enough to meet the entire market. However, it will help in a large extent to reduce the gap that is being created currently in the market.
Peter Tekpa, I'm grateful that you've been able to join us. He is an energy policy analyst, helping us to understand the issues there. Now, the biggest telecommunications operator in Ghana, MTN, has warned that the country will continue to face challenges with the implementation of the E-levy until at least July. CEO of More Money at MTN, Early Hini, has been sharing his thoughts and solutions to the implementation challenges on the Super Morning Show.
So initially, the SIM registration deadline was end of March. That has been moved forward. Yeah. Now, in the implementation, that will now derive the use of the SIM registration using the GRA's common platform is now the July one. So essentially, that is when we get the full scope, and then we are able to complete the identification on either party. Right. And so with that realization and realizing we would not be able to achieve that now, is then the opportunity for those who may have been wrongly taxed to complain and get the refund. So that's why the refund process is there. And that's why for this particular modified approach, the refund process will be different from when we go into the full implementation, because the conditions will be different.
So does that suggest that we will be having some of these issues and a requirement of a refund until July?
Yes, with the modified approach that we've implemented, we do not have visibility on the other side, so that scenario may arise. I was telling someone that usually you look at the scenarios and you look at the percentage occurrence. Usually for the kinds of transaction trends we see, people will normally not send money to themselves on another wallet. It will be to their bank account or from their bank account to their wallet. So that scenario itself is a very minor part of the total volume. And so once we put in an efficient refund process, it should be able to handle the numbers that will be on that side until we are fully operational on July 1 with the full scope.
Now, the National Chief Imam, Dr. Sheikh Usman Nuhu Shaributu, is urging government to stay true to its promise of investing in Islamic education and offering scholarships to children in Zongo communities. Sheikh Aremia Shaibu made the appeal on behalf of the Chief Imam at a national Eid-ul-Fitr celebration held at the Black Star Square here in the Greater Accra region.
We have been informed about a number of initiatives to rehabilitate Islamic schools within the Zongo spread across the length and breadth of Ghana. We are also aware of the Arabic teachers who have been deployed and paid some salaries to be able to teach in Islamic schools. One of the key things of commendation is a scholarship which we cannot forget. 40 students who have been taken outside the country to Cuba to learn medicine and come back and contribute to the health delivery system of our country. We are also impressed with the promise made with the Chief Imam. Your Excellency, Chief Imam says he looks forward for the time when we shall do the first shortcutting of the government's intended model Islamic schools in the Zongo spread across the country. The Chief Imam cannot wait and is waiting to see the day when this shortcutting will take place.
As Muslims across the country continue to observe the Eid festivities, which mark the end of the Muslim holy month of Ramadan, the Municipal Chief Imam of the Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah, Imam Idris Suleimana, has cautioned Muslims, particularly the youth, to stay away from engaging in acts that go against the teaching of Islam and the laws of the country. He bemoaned the rate at which people ride carelessly on motorbikes during Eid celebrations and noted that Islam is against such celebrations. Correspondent Anas Sabit was at the Eid grounds in Techiman and now reports.
After a month of prayer, devotion and self-control, Muslims celebrate the accomplishment of their sacred duties during Ramadan with the beginning of Eid-ul-Fitr, or the festival of breaking the fast. In some parts of the country, some Muslim youth observe this day with activities which includes the reckless riding of motorbikes and other non-Islamic acts. Municipal Chief Imam of Al-Sunnah wal Jama'ah for Techiman, Imam Idris Suleiman, expressed worry at the situation and cautioned the youth to desist from engaging into acts that are against the laws of the country.
I call on Muslim anything that is not lawful. You know, Ghana have law. We have law on riding, law on driving. If you try not to follow that law, it means you are not a good Muslim. So I'm calling on the youth. Those riding motorcycles like they are celebrating Eid, that riding motorcycle carelessly on the road, that is not celebrating Eid. And at the same time, we have some people too who do Salah dance. Salah have no dance, Salah have no jam, Salah have nothing like that. That is worldly things. So we shouldn't mix our Eid with worldly things.
Imam Idris also expressed worry at the way Muslim students, particularly girls, are being treated in the various senior high schools in the country with regards to the wearing of hijab for Muslim girls. He's cautioning authorities, particularly in the education sector, to allow Muslim students to practice what the religion teaches.
Because of our lateness in doing infrastructure for education and so on, our children are being tackled in their schools to stop using hijab and so on, especially the girls. I want to call on the government that Ghana is a secular state. I beg on our friends and our Ghanaian brothers who are non-Muslims that they should try to allow Muslims to practice their Islam there instead of forcing them to do some people's religion.
Some of the Muslims here have been expressing what the Eid means to them. They are excited about the situation, and Abdul Karim Hussein is one of them.
First thing, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. I'm very, very excited that after going through this 30 days cleansing, Alhamdulillah, I've been alive to witness this great day, to come around with all these marvelous people and worship my Lord.
For Mubarak Hashir, also a Muslim and a health worker, he is particularly worried with the way the youth observe this particular day, especially the careless riding of motorbikes. He has a message for Muslim youth.
My advice to them is, as a health worker, we've been observing a lot of cases at the hospital, most especially at this time period. When you see a young guy like this losing his or her, any of the upper or the lower limbs, it's very hurtful. So I entreat all the youths to stay calm. At least their life is more precious to us and then the whole community.
So this is it from the Jaco LA School Park here in the Techima municipality of the Borno East region. My name is Anas Sabit reporting for JoyNews.
Now, the end of the Ramadan period also means it is actually time for a merrymaking with family and friends. But for many of these families, they cannot celebrate as usual. They say they have to cut back on the expenses for the sake of the economic hardship. Michael Papaniashale interacted with some of these families after the national prayers here in Accra.
So the final prayers for the Ramadan period has been said. That marks the end of the Ramadan period, a month-long fasting period for Muslims across the world. Here in Ghana, they've been having their ceremony at the Black Star Square. We'll be interacting some of them after the prayer. What next? What is going to happen? What are they going to do at home? The Chief Imam has been speaking to them about love and peace and making sure that they contribute to national development as well. I talked to some families on what exactly they will be doing today. Let me get closer to these people. Barika de Sanla. Barika de Sanla.
Barikari. Fama mi brother.
Enti ba me no start into ukofie ukokwa de sama ya bompa ya wie ukokwa de.
Ya mi se mi du fia mi konyo omoni wolo bi na ma pejo ani bi na ma dio. Cause fasting no se u ya u bre enye easy. Enti se ube bompa na ukofie person fa ejuani bi na undi na uma for bi no so mundi na enya mi nhira o. Sa
Mr. Medasepa, so you just heard from one of those who are going through the Ramadan period. It's a family here of women. Let me ask them. Barika Sanla.
Barika.
Wonderful. So from here, what are you going to do at home?
I'm going to prepare food for my families and friends.
What food are you going to prepare?
Rice and stew.
And the meat, what are you having? Fowl, goat or cow?
I'm having fowl.
How many of them are you killing this year?
I'm killing only 5 because the economic is so down. Yeah.
So the big salad, you do more fowl?
That, yeah, inshallah.
Sure. But let me talk to some more people from your family. Baraka de Sanla.
Baraka.
Wonderful. So what are you going to do at home now? You're done with the prayers. What next?
Maybe take a little nap and then continue.
I see. What are you going to cook at home? What is going to be the special thing about the food for the Sanla?
Rice and stew.
What meat are you going to feature?
Chicken.
Chicken?
Yeah.
Why chicken though?
Because it's chicken.
How many chicken are you both killing this year?
5.
Wonderful. All the best to you and your family. So I was speaking to some more families here. Young man, please join me.
Ilyas.
Baraka Resala.
Baraka Kadi.
What's your name?
My name is Abubakar.
Great. So we are done with the prayers, right? Yes, yeah. You are going home. What are you going to do at home?
Now we are going to, going to fry chickens and, make some fresh rice to just make our Eid, so something spicy. What would you say to your friends? We know that usually Muslims are very generous during the Salah period. What should your friends be expecting from you? All what I will say is Barakah Salah to all Muslims, and I'm wishing everybody a successful life, That's it. Let me thank you very much. So we'll be interacting with some more families who have come here. Yeah, what are they going home to cook?
Right. I think Fubu will like soup.
But that tells me they are going to have goat or cow meat. Which is with you? You are the one who's going to prepare it?
Chicken.
Chicken?
Yeah.
How many chicken are you killing this year?
I really don't know. I can't count.
Okay, great. But who is not invited to your food you are going to be preparing?
Because it's Eid-ul-Fitr, everyone is invited. Family or no family, everyone is invited.
Okay, but for the period of fasting, what does it mean for you as a Muslim?
For me, it's an obligation. I have to do it. I have no option.
And having gone through it, how different do you feel now?
I feel happy because during a fast, we're not able to eat, but now I feel.
Let me thank you very much. Let me speak to some people who are also here, but are dressed differently. The attire in itself speaks for itself. Let me try and speak to some other people and see what exactly probably if there's a meaning to the attire. Baraka Resala. Wonderful. I'm seeing that your dressing looks very different from some other ones that I have seen. Is there any meaning behind this particular dressing?
Yeah, as you can see, today is Eid-ul-Fitr. We are celebrating today's Eid. So we made a fasting some 29, some 30 days. So once today God showed us this day, so you have to appreciate and dress well and come and pray and ask forgiveness to Almighty Allah.
Your scarf, is there a name for it?
Yes, please.
What's the name for the headgear?
I'm the chief. Yeah, so that's why you see. So everybody has his own style. Yeah.
So for the other hats or maybe headgear that will be seen, there are people who are just wearing a hat, a round hat, others that are wearing a flat one. Are there meanings? Could you walk us through some of those?
Yes, please. Those who are wearing the round ones are imams. So those who are wearing some that you see, they are having 2 or 3 are chiefs. So that's how it is.
I see. Let me thank you very much. I didn't get your name.
Welcome. Yeah, my name is Ali Fari.
Yeah. Thank you very much for speaking to us here. So we are at the Blaster Square interacting with some more people who just finished their religious prayers, christening the month of Ramadan. There are other things, activities that are also happening here. There are people who are sitting on the horse as a side thing to do. How does it feel to be on the horse?
It feels awesome.
But why have you decided to sit on the horse on this special day?
Because I just want to feel. I just want to feel the vibe.
So let me ask you. From here, you are going home. What are you going to do?
I'm going to eat my mom's food, and then I go to there's some occasion going around, so we go there to watch the Kings, and then the vibe.
Let me thank you very much. So, these are one of the people who decided to sit on a horse on this special day. I'll be interacting with some more families who have come to the Independence Square. Some of them for the very first time. So where have you come? Where have you come from? America. Well, which state were you from?
Next year.
So he's from New Jersey. Okay, so it's a sister. So it's a whole family that have traveled all the way from the United States of America just to have this ceremony. Where's their father? Or their mother? Oh, wonderful. But so why this? Why particularly make that journey from the USA just to be here?
To come and celebrate the Salah. Because of the corona, we didn't celebrate about 2 years ago. So now we are very happy. That's why we came to come and celebrate with our family. How
different does it feel to celebrate this in Ghana?
I feel so good. I feel so good because the corona is gone. So now we are free. Ghana to Salah is special than America. So Ghana Salah is #1, no size.
Wonderful. Let me thank you very much. So a whole family journeyed from the United States of America just to come to the Black Star Square and finish off the month of Ramadan. It's a month long of fasting that they have come through to finish off here. So this is the Black Star Square. The month of Ramadan has ended for Muslims across the country as well as the whole world in itself. My name is Michael Papani Ashale reporting for JoyNews from the Black Star Square.
Well, it's the best wishes from us here at JoyNews to our Muslim brothers and sisters. Well, last week, Majesty the Queen Elizabeth marked her birthday and the Platinum Jubilee. Now, around the world as well, the Queen was also celebrated for that enviable feat. In Ghana, the High Commissioner, Harriet Thompson, led a celebration on the sidelines of which Kojo Yankson had this conversation with her.
World events touch us, whether we want them to or not, especially when our partners are a little bit more involved in it than we are. The United Kingdom, as a member of the UN Security Council, has made quite clear their views on what's happening in the Ukraine. Today we have the opportunity to sit with the UK High Commissioner to Ghana to learn a little bit more about the UK's approach to this and how they are working with Ghana in light of the recent events since Russia invaded Ukraine. Your Excellency, it's a pleasure to sit with you. Thanks for making the time.
Thank you.
All right, let's start from the beginning. It's quite clear what the UK's position is on what's happening in the Ukraine. You've condemned it largely. But we're aware that in any war, there's also the war of public relations and communication, and the messaging is varied from both sides. Let's talk about that for a minute. How is the world to trust one side of the story over the other? How is the world to trust the West's side of the story of what's happening in Ukraine?
It's a good question, and I think this war particularly shows us the power of information and the power of how information can be used to sway the picture, to sway public opinion, and to sway, therefore, people's actions. What is important is the objective collection of evidence now, so that it can't just be your view against your view. It is evidence showing and demonstrating what has actually happened, the truth. That is why it's so important that there is currently an international effort to gather that evidence in Ukraine so that we have a record, so that when the time is right, the International Criminal Court can use that evidence and hold whoever is responsible to account for whatever crimes have been committed. So it's not a West against the rest, it's collectively gathering the evidence and taking an objective position. If I may also pick up on something that you opened with, you talked about the UK's visible demonstration of our strength of feeling about Russia's actions, including as a member of the UN Security Council. I want to also recall and commend Ghana's own role on the UN Security Council, Ghana's own role of standing up in this instance, but also more widely as the chair of ECOWAS, for the principles of sovereignty and of democracy.
To be fair, though, this gathering of evidence, Russia is not involved in that, are they? So in a way, they would be forgiven for suggesting that it's a one-sided gathering of evidence. How will that be reconciled once this is all over and this evidence is presented as evidence of crimes that Russia has committed?
So Russia is a member of the international community. It is Russia's decision to take part or not in the international rules-based institutions. What we've seen, including in how they are acting currently at the UN, is their continued misrepresentation of the facts, misinformation, disinformation, and outright lies. It is important for both sides of any story to be heard. Both sides need to come with their evidence, not just with the sound bites, with the claims, but with the evidence. That's what's really crucial here. On the topic of information, if I may just talk briefly about one of the projects that the UK government has been running here in Ghana recently. We have had some of our strategic communications experts over from the British government working with the Ministry of Information for the last few months, helping them to identify misinformation and disinformation. Not with any particular country in mind, not with any actor in mind, but in general, we live in an age of information. It's coming at us from all angles, and being able to apply that power of critical thinking to understand what is true or what is not, and where we find untruths, where there's misinformation, where there's disinformation, being able to get that accurate narrative out there is absolutely crucial.
The sanctions that have been leveled against Russia are quite far-reaching. Just this morning I was watching a story about hundreds of millions of dollars worth of vehicles that have been impounded in Belgium, which will not make their way to Russia. And, it's all part of the sanctions. In the UK, we've seen similar moves. Abramovich lost Chelsea, which has many fans here in Ghana. What was the idea there? Is it simply because he's a Russian, or is there some direct link between he in particular and what's happening in the Ukraine?
The sanctions that the UK has applied in conjunction with many international partners around the world are the most far-reaching sanctions that we have ever applied, and deliberately so. They are targeted at those people who are directly around Putin, supporting his regime, supporting this attack, this unprovoked attack on Russia. So they are targeted. Yes, they are far-reaching. The impact of them is heavy, but it's targeted on those individuals who are most involved in that regime. There's been a concerted effort to identify those people and to take the measures that will have greatest impact on those people.
So there are Russian businessmen and women in the UK who have not been affected by these sanctions?
Potentially, though I would say the nature of the sanctions, the nature of how business works in Russia means that very many of them will have been. That is deliberate, because we do not want people in the UK who are supporting Putin's regime, who are therefore directly or indirectly supporting this unprovoked attack on Ukraine, to be benefiting by being able to do business in the UK or with the UK. So there are very many Russian people who are living in the UK who have been there for many years, whose families are there, whose homes are there. There are people who have nothing to do with the war, have nothing to do with the government, and those people will not be affected by those sanctions. But people like Roman Abramovich, whose connection with the regime is clear, they will be, and deliberately so.
This conflict is affecting economies all around the world. UK is no exception. Another thing that is affecting economies all around the world is COVID. So this year, the UK has seen some austerity measures put in place just to help the economy survive. How has this affected trade and aid between UK and Ghana?
So we saw, unfortunately, the move by the UK from spending 0.7% of our GDP on our aid budget, our overseas development assistance, to 0.5%, and that has had an impact right the way across the world. However, we are still a major donor. We still spend over £10 billion a year on overseas development assistance, and a huge proportion of that is still coming to Africa, to the continent of Africa. But it's not just through our overseas development assistance that we are supporting the development of countries like Ghana. It's also, as you mentioned, the involvement of the private sector, and through them the investment, the trade that will provide the economic conditions to create the jobs that Ghana so desperately needs. And that is still happening. I enjoy every day, every week, getting out and meeting some of the companies, small or large, that are contributing that are a part of that important element of our partnership. Our Foreign Secretary announced recently the renaming of CDC, the reform of CDC, our Development Finance Institute. It's now known as British Investment International, and Ghana will continue to see, in fact, we'll see more of the involvement of that organisation here as we open an office here and as we think about how we can use that instrument in a way that meets the conditions here in Ghana. Over 60% of their budget will continue to be spent on the continent of Africa. So we're still here, both from the government, ODA perspective, and with our private sector.
And it's about ideology. We've all condemned what's happening in Ukraine. Ghana has condemned it, just as the UK has. How does the UK respond to those who suggest that this is history repeating itself? The UK has been accused of invading nations in the past, where in the end it's turned out there was no justification for it, or the justification was wrong. I'm thinking Iraq.
There will always be disagreements about matters that are as important as this, as important as one country invading another country. The war in Ukraine was pre-planned. From what has happened since the invasion, it is clear that Putin never had any intention of negotiating a diplomatic solution to what he claims were his legitimate security concerns. He and through him his army are bombing apartment buildings, they're bombing hospitals, a children's maternity hospital, they're refusing to let civilians leave. That is unacceptable in any reasonable person's view, I would suggest.
It's a great place to end it. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Well, so the UK High Commission is not the only actors concerned about the situation in Ukraine. The European Union has also been stating their position on the matter. I caught up with the EU head of mission here in Ghana, Ishad Razale. I started off by asking him about his tour of duty.
Welcoming has been really great. People are warm, friendly, open. The country itself, you know it better than me, is a beautiful country, has a lot to offer, so I have absolutely no complaints so far. On the contrary, I was happy to crisscross the country from central region to Kumasi to western region. Have to confess I've made a short incursion in the Volta region last week, and I would like to discover more. I've been as well in some of the northern provinces. So.
Right. So it's a good time for you.
Very good.
Did we meet your expectation, or are you expecting much more?
No, you should not have any expectations in order not to be surprised or not to be disappointed. But the time is really, really good. Once again, great people, great country, great assignment. And I'm particularly happy and honored to serve in this country, which is a key partner. Stable, democratic, trustworthy partner to the EU, especially in West Africa, and this makes a lot of the, I would say, the excitement.
Right, interesting, and many would say that if you talk about the European Union and its partners across the world, Africa remains a key partner, and that obviously includes nations like Ghana. We know that the relations has dated over 4 decades, I should say. The dynamics at the time it was starting are not necessarily the same as we have it now. But what's your assessment of the status of the EU-Ghana relations?
The relation between the European Union and Ghana have been improving over the years, and just as key indicators, in the last year or in the last 18 months, the President Akufo-Addo visited Europe, the European Union as such, not only European member states, 4 times. We had lately a high-level visit from the Commissioner in charge of international partnership. It was just a few weeks ago, and these are key indicators of the, I would say, the solidity of the link. The other indication is the very good match between the priorities we are supporting together, Ghana and the European Union, in terms of upcoming programs. These are key engagements in terms of job and growth support, stimulation, support what we call smart cities, and when it comes as well to governance and security. And these are joint, I would say, priorities, jointly identified by Ghana and European together for the years to come.
And for some experts, if there's anything reinforcing the need for partnership between the EU and Ghana, obviously we cannot shy away from the subject matter of COVID-19. The pandemic has actually ravaged not just European economies, but also here in Ghana as well. We are feeling the effect of the virus. In what ways has the European Union helped nations across Africa, and including Ghana, to battle this pandemic?
The European Union has been the worldwide first partner to support access to vaccines, actually. And Ghana was the first country worldwide benefiting from vaccine shipped by the so-called COVID initiative funded by the European Union. And beyond the vaccines, the European Union is currently supporting the Ghanaian administration, the Food and Drug Administration, to build a facility to produce vaccines on the very soil of Ghana, which is very important, which makes a key, I would say, contribution for this partnership, because this will be only a handful of countries like Senegal, Rwanda, and now Ghana who will be part of this program. But to come back to the other intervention of the European Union to weather the consequences of COVID, last year only, we have disbursed 87 million euro to the Ghanaian government in order to address the socio-economic consequences of the COVID. And lately this year, we have mobilized 82 million euros on top of that to reinforce the health sector. And now, as I said, we are supporting the country to host and to develop vaccine facility. Not only for COVID as well, but for other diseases.
But you agree that it's not been a smooth journey getting to the point of vaccine equality. Sadly, experts say that in spite of these interventions that we're seeing, there's that great divide where the global north, the more industrialized nations across the world have access to more vaccines than developing countries such as Ghana. For instance, Oxfam is reporting that Europe, for instance, has had to bin some 50 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccines, which is far more in excess than what you've given to countries such as Ghana. Why is the EU not willing to save the world when it has a beautiful opportunity to do so?
I'm a bit surprised by what you have been saying, because this is exactly the opposite. Ghana was the first country worldwide to benefit from vaccines funded by the European Union, first. And secondly, Ghana is one of the very few African countries which will be producing its own vaccines. So when you are raising this issue of lack of vaccines to vaccines, this is absolutely irrelevant.
It's an issue of equality, I guess. The question has always been about equality. There are even challenges of waiving, for instance, the issues of intellectual property rights over the production of the vaccine itself. These are issues that confront the EU today. How are you addressing it? I guess it feeds into the conversation of equality across the world in terms of access to vaccines.
Yes, equality across the world, there are challenges on all fronts, not only on vaccines. So, on vaccines, as it was an acute crisis, we have done the utmost to narrow the gap. And as I say, you can check how many countries will be able to produce vaccines worldwide. And Ghana will be at the forefront because of the EU commitment to support the Ghanaian request.
But will that be enough for Africa, I guess?
That's the idea. That's the idea. And not only for Africa.
But the question about waiving the intellectual property of other vaccines, you have not dealt with that as the EU, have you?
No, we have dealt with that. This is an issue for the WTO, the World Trade Organization, because this is linked to international intellectual property. But this is another conversation. You cannot just force businesses to waiver the rights on vaccines or any other, I would say, product. But this conversation is in one track. The other conversation that we have is how to ship vaccines and how to produce vaccines.
And the whole issue of the pandemic is also having effects on our economy, for instance. Here we are, Ghana is grappling to meet its revenue targets, and there's the call by some experts that we need to look elsewhere, look up to the West for support. Is the EU willing to extend that help to Ghana in these very trying times?
This is what I've said in introduction. We have disbursed 87 million euro grant last year, precisely for that. And we have disbursed 82 million euro, this is loan to support the health sector. But beyond that, what we are doing is to support the government on its all priority areas when it comes to one district, one factory, planting for food and job, one dam, one district, and we are supporting all these key areas because these are areas that will make a difference for the very life of every people beyond macroeconomics. So this is where we are focusing our efforts, and we hope to gain traction and get impact on the ground because these, once again, are joint undertaking between the European Union and Ghana.
And since you're making some strides in that, some say what may revert or I mean thwart your efforts would be what's happening on the global front, the Russian-Ukraine war. It's beginning to have impact on not just European economies but also countries here in Africa. We've had our Vice President, for instance, talk about the fact that what's happening between Ukraine and Russia is beginning to have a toll on African countries. Given the fact that it's affecting economies such as Ghana, what is the EU willing to do to mediate, if possible, if that's possible, the conflict, and also extending some form of assistance to African nations such as Ghana?
Firstly, the situation, it's not a situation, it's an aggression and invasion conducted by Russia against a sovereign country, Ukraine, and we are in it all together. There are economic consequences in Europe, there are economic consequences in the American continent, in the African continent as well, in the Asian continent. So we have to face it all together. Firstly, on the diplomatic and the political side, we have been together with the Ghanaian authorities and the majority of African countries to condemn the invasion and the aggression from Russia on Ukraine, the very day of the aggression. This is point number one. Point number two, as you mentioned, the magnitude of the economic crisis, which affects, I would say, all the world, is now currently discussed in order to address and to make, I would say, extra effort. So there are discussions conducted with the IMF, with the World Bank, with the G20, the G7, in order to, once again, maybe expand the extraordinary effort which has already been made for COVID times. Okay, COVID times called for already extraordinary effort when it comes to debt issues, when it comes to economic stimulation. So these schemes are now, I would say, assessed in order to see to what extent they can be expanded, prolonged, in order to address the current situation.
But the fear is it may change the priority of Europe towards Africa.
Absolutely not. This is far-fetched. Absolutely not. This is the reason why the commissioner in charge of international partnership came to Ghana and other African countries, even though the priority of the day was and is very much Ukraine for obvious geopolitical reasons. But even that, you know, the financial envelope for Ghana and the African countries has not decreased. The political attention has not decreased, on the contrary, and so you have absolutely no indication that there is, I would say, a shift of attention, investment, and I would say a priority when it comes to Africa. Geography and history is stubborn, so there are only 14 kilometers between Europe and Africa, so this was there 1,000 years ago, this will be there tomorrow. This is the case today. So.
And some say that what we're seeing in the world now is a case or a test case for democracy. That's what the European Union has always stood for, the fact that there's a need for a free world, a free society, and the respect for human rights and all of that across the world. But if you even move away from the Russian-Ukrainian war, here in our part of the world as well, democracy appears to be taking a backseat, which is also going contrary to the ideals that the EU has on democracy. You look at West Africa, for instance, there's a growing trend of military takeovers and instability across the region. The fear is some burgeoning democracies such as Ghana may be affected as a result of the wave we're experiencing in West Africa. Is the EU concerned about what's happening in the sub-region?
We are concerned in what's happening in the sub-region in West Africa, which I want to remind you was for long the most advanced region when it comes to democracy in Africa.
Right.
Between the years 2000 to 2020, it was the most advanced. This is the only region which has a protocol on democracy and on governance. So this is important to remind, and as you've mentioned, there are currently some situations and setbacks that are dealt with primarily by ECOWAS with Ghana at its helm. And there, I have to say that we are supporting Ghanaian efforts 100% because, as you've said, Ghana is a truly democratic, stable country which shares our concern when it comes to the global order. What are we standing for? We are standing for democratic values.
Right.
We are standing for cooperation. This is the very idea of the European Union.
Right.
And we stand for rule-based international order at multilateral level, like Ghana. As you know, Ghana is sitting currently in the UN Security Council,
Right.
and these are very values that we are sharing between Ghana and European Union. Of course, we have concerns when it comes to some situation in the region, but we are, I would say, working side by side to try to address them.
But what's your diagnosis of the problem, really, of why democracy appears to be taking a back seat? Not just even in West Africa, here in Ghana as well, some professors, very learned people, have expressed the fear that there may be a military takeover. What do you see as that basic problem affecting all of these African countries, including Ghana?
I'm not really sure about what you are referring to when it comes to Ghana, really. The elections in 2020 were taken their course, were recognized internationally, open, fair and democratic. The life in the parliament keeps us, I would say, entertained to some extent, because this is a vivid expression of democracy. There is real debate, people agree, people disagree. This is the indication of vivid democracy.
But the spectacle hasn't been amazing, you agree?
In
you
a
there was a brawl, for instance, in Ghana's parliament.
In an authoritarian state, there will not be any debate, no disagreement. And this is not what I'm seeing in Ghana, for example. Okay. So I don't share your statement or your assessment that there are, I would say, a setback when it comes to Ghana. When it comes to the other countries, you know, there are military people who believe they can do better than the elected people. This is unfortunate, this is what they feel, and this is the reason why we, the European Union, together with ECOWAS, chaired by Ghana, are trying to find solutions. Okay.
But I was just talking about, for instance, our Ghanaian parliament. You've witnessed a rather unfortunate spectacle. The EU MPs don't fight, for instance, in the chambers, but we're having such incidents happen here in Ghana. For instance, Professor Atugba, one of the renowned lawyers here in the country, is also warning that if our political leaders do not change the trajectory, then we are in for
this is his statement, and
very,
this is
very
his,
worst times in terms of
this is
our
his
democracy.
statement, and this is his assessment. It's not mine, and it's not the European Union's statement as assessment. I can tell you that discussion in parliaments in European countries can be really heated and vivid. I can tell you that when minority or majority parties are tabling bills which most of the time could be contentious, because this is as well the life of parliament. This is debated, this is heated, and then this landing. Okay, so I think this is all part of a democratic life.
So you don't feel our democracy is at the verge or the brink of collapse?
Absolutely not.
Right. Let's talk about the 2020 elections, for instance. Your election observer mission was here in the country. You pointed out that there was abuse of state resources in the lead up to the elections, for instance. Many say some of these activities is making the youth despondent, the fact that they don't have any hope in their government, the fact that they don't believe that their governments will be able to change the course of the country. Is that the same feeling that you have sitting and looking through all these reports that have come to your table?
We have sent in 2020 an independent observation mission led by members of parliament, because some of them are engaging into that area of external action. And the main finding is that the elections were open, transparent and democratic. And of course, here and there are rooms for improvement. We have made recommendations. Main recommendations are linked to the funding of the political campaign, for example, but this is an area where we can make improvement in many places in the world, including in Europe, in Northern America and so on. And the most important part is that, as I said, the recommendations are for the Ghanaian government and institutions to consider. It's not the European Union saying you have to do that, but they say on this occasion or on this, I would say, situation, maybe something else could have been envisaged. So by and large, once again, the elections were open, transparent and democratic.
Should we be looking at term limits? But the basis is, well, it's not as entrenched, and the fear is that, and we've even heard from our president, for instance, say that should be taken to the sub-regional level where you have inter-governmental organizations such as ECOWAS and all of that, making that as part of international law where every country must respect term limits, and that's the basis from which
But
I'm
this is what
right?
I've been referring to
Right.
in introduction, the ECOWAS region, which is the most integrated region in Africa,
Right.
was and to some extent still is one of the most advanced regions when it comes to democracy and when it comes to institutional framework. And this protocol on good governance and democracy, which has been worked on in order to renew it because it's 20 years now, has got this indication of terms limit. So we are already there.
But we know that obviously what's the integral part of democracy has got to do with human rights. The EU has also been monitoring that aspect of our national development. You point out, for instance, in some of the reports that you've issued on human rights here in Ghana, that issues of the rights of women and children still remains a big challenge for our country, a challenge that our authorities need to deal with. How do we have to go about this, and what do you feel should be the priority in terms of the approach to tackling this challenge of inequalities which still exist within our community?
The European Union and Ghana share those values and cherish them very much, meaning respect for human dignity, equality between men and women, socio-economic inclusion, open debate, solid democratic institutions, so on and so forth. This is the reason why these values, which are the bedrock of the European Union project, are now to be celebrated, as we have 65 years, like Ghana, right. 65 years of a European project behind us. We will be celebrating the 9th of May, what we call the Schuman Declaration. Right. What is it about? 5 years after the Second World War, the most horrific war in the modern history, the French Minister of Foreign Affairs proposed his German counterpart to put together the resources when it comes to coal and steel.
Right.
Coal and steel were meant to build arms. So the very idea is to build a de facto solidarity, as Robert Schuman called it, in order to make it impossible for one or the other former belligerent to build arms in the back of the other. On the contrary, they should pull together their industries to rebuild. Why am I saying so? Because this is at the very idea of cooperation, and when you add that to human rights, democracy, willingness to ensure cooperation, and a rule-based international order, these were the values which made it impossible or unthinkable that members of the European Union go to war against each other. And this is where we are 65 years down the line.
And we'll be talking about your decision to mark that, a week-long program. We'll talk about some of the events that are scheduled to happen and what Ghanaians and also the rest of the world could learn from the EU. But then, just as you're saying, it's all in line with the issue of human rights. Press freedom is also at the core of this. Just recently, well, it's not necessarily Europe, but some other members of the international community raised concerns about the continuous attack on journalists here in our country. You've also pointed out that in some of the reports that you've issued on human rights here in our country. Do you feel, or are you getting the sense, is the international community getting the sense that press freedom is not being guaranteed here in Ghana?
Press freedom is a key value for democracy worldwide. This is the case as well in Ghana. And for our case, we have followed with great interest and great care the follow-up to this case, because this was an important development. And last year, or this year, the government has adopted a right to information legislation, which only reinforces the press freedom, and we are supporting that very much, and we are welcoming that very much. So, as we've said, freedom, expression, journalism are key values, key capital to nurture. We have to do it together. You have your role to do that. We have our assessment, but the key actors are the Ghanaian institutions.
Already the international ratings are not giving us a good picture in terms of how we're performing when it comes to guaranteeing the safety of journalists. Do you feel that this is an area we should improve on?
No, this is part of the many responsibilities of the Ghanaian authorities, the Ghanaian journalists, the Ghanaian watchdogs, and other people who are looking after this area. Yes.
The opposition political party here in Ghana feels that there's a culture of silence which is creeping into our society, and there would be a need for the international community to intervene and to help deal with the issues. They've, for instance, roped in the courts, claiming that it's not as independent as it should be. Is the EU concerned about this? Have you received the reports, and what are you likely to do to mediate and to ensure that there is peace in this country?
What we are likely to do is absolutely not meddling into that development, because this is the responsibility of the Ghanaian authorities, and as far as I'm concerned, there is no civil war in Ghana. So there is absolutely no reason for us to impose ourselves into a situation. There is rule of law, there are watchdog bodies, there is an independent justice, and everybody is in a position to make its claim and to get justice served. So I would like to challenge the very idea that we would have a responsibility, or we would have a role to play in order to make things right into the Ghanaian landscape.
But the fear is we've exhausted all internal mechanisms, and that's why the main opposition political party is raising such concerns. Don't you feel that you're lukewarm about this? There's a need at least to have some influence to try and coming and try and ensure that
I'm very surprised that in 2022, in the very country of Nkrumah, you are asking for external actors to have an influence on Ghana. Is it what you are saying? Are you calling external actors to have an influence over Ghanaian government or Ghanaian country.
This is what mediation is what we need. If the opposition political party had an option,
I don't believe this is a serious discussion.
They wouldn't have resorted to the international community.
No. I don't believe in international intervention into a sovereign country's affair.
The fear is we may go the path of other countries in the sub-region if you don't come in to at least speak to all the powers that be.
We'll see how it develops, but I don't believe this is the direction that discussion will go.
Okay then. Obviously we have a beautiful opportunity as a country to learn from the EU during your Europe Week. It's starting from the 2nd of May. What activities will you be rolling out, and why should not just Europeans but Ghanaians also be very much interested in this celebration?
The celebration is not about EU teaching anything to Ghana as you are implying, or EU intervening in Ghana as you are calling for, but celebrating 65 years of friendship. Because Ghana acceded to independence in 57, European Union has been created in 57, and this is a great match because since the very beginning the European Union has been siding with Ghana for its development, consolidation of its democracy, reinforcing its regional stance, and creating opportunities for its youth. So this is what we will be celebrating during the Europe Week, or maybe it will last more than 1 week, but basically we will celebrate diversity and exchanges in projecting Ghanaian and European movies around the issue of disability. Why is that so? Because it's very important that we reaffirm the fact that the society should be open and inclusive to everyone, even disabled people. There will be showcase about what we are doing in terms of plastic recycling. I will be visiting with my colleagues a plastic recycling unit not far from Accra. We will be showcasing some of our most brilliant young entrepreneurs benefiting from the European program, because this is the future. Future lies in economic growth, innovation, socio-economic inclusion, entrepreneurship. We will be showcasing as well what we are doing in terms of large infrastructure. As you know, we have been part of the Pong Dam since the very beginning. We are part of its modernization, and we are part as well of the One District, One Dam program. Even in the northern region of Ghana, we have adopted a few weeks ago a program for agriculture in order to increase the productivity of agriculture, innovation, and job creation for women and youth.
So these are some of the interventions that we've seen. And are we expecting more activities beyond the 2nd to May period? Are there some activities that?
Yes, I think it will be a bit like the year of return. We will do beyond. We will do beyond the week.
Yeah.
We will do beyond the European week. We are doing so much together with the Ghanaian government. We cannot just limit for a small showcase for 1 week. I've been with fishermen in the Volta region because we feel very much for the situation of sustainability of fishing industry, artisanal fishing, for example. This is one key area. This is about people. This is about their revenue. This is about their daily life. But we are very much engaged as well when it comes to large infrastructure. I mentioned Pong Dam, mentioning energy, supporting the secondary cities. We are supporting the city of
and education
Kumasi.
as well, I guess.
Education is a key component of our engagement. Tertiary education and TVET, because there again we would like to facilitate and create the room for better job access for the youth of Ghana. And we will do special events with the alumni of the Erasmus program. The Erasmus Mundus program is, you know, the international bursary program that we are running. It's a huge program. Several billions of euros are invested into global knowledge, and there are 300 young Ghanaians who went through this program, and I will be delighted to welcome some of them here next week.
And we are all excited about that. I'm interested in TVET as well. The belief is that's one area of our educational system that could unlock the potential of the youth out there. Is the EU willing to partner in some programs that would expand?
Yes, we are already
TVET?
partnering with the Ministry of Employment and Labour, but we have to, so TVET is a key area for intervention of the European Union, precisely because this is a way to unlock the hurdle and the bottleneck for youngsters to access the job market. And as I said, one of the key joint priority areas between European Union and Ghana is stimulating growth and job. Sustainable growth and job, and this is what we are doing with TVET. We have very large program already ongoing, but in the years to come as well, we are partnering with several bodies, universities, and the Ministry of Labour of Employment, for example.
Well, so we need to wrap up. Ambassador, what will be your final words to Ghanaians out there?
No, I think it's time for celebration. 60 years of friendship, 65 years of partnership, in a moment where the relations are really picking up between Europe and Ghana, is only reason to celebrate.
Well, so you can catch a repeat of my interaction with the head of the EU mission here in Ghana, Ishat Razali, on all of our social media handles. It's at JoyNews on TV. My name is Blessed Sogah. That's all we have for you here on The Pulse. Log on to myjoyonline.com. We have updates for you there.